Hey, thanks everybody who came out for the Art and Science of Innovation Change-Making webinar today. I'm taking a little bit of inspiration from Nicholas Thompson, the editor of Wired magazine, who does a daily rant on the most interesting thing in tech on LinkedIn, where he unpacks an idea in about 2 minutes. I'm also taking an idea or inspiration from an unusual source, and that's The Bachelor. They do something called After the Rose, and they unpack the idea of what happened in this season. Don't ask me how I know that. Anyway, I wanted to do the same thing here in the spirit of innovation and feedback and learning, and come back with some of my thoughts on what happened with the webinar today. So I was very grateful to have everybody come out. And one of the things that I noticed was that there's a lot of content. And this is one of the things that's always a tricky thing with change making, is that you often don't know something until you actually go ahead and do it. And sure enough, as I'm going through the webinar, I can do lots of prep and stuff. I struggled at times to make sure that the content was relevant. And I think that's part of the problem with having an introductory workshop of sort, where I'm trying to introduce a lot of big ideas, and I can go more specifically into those at a later date, at a later webinar, which is good, but I think it does make for a lot, and I think people could bear with that. So that was one of the takeaways, was there's a lot of content. It meant that some big ideas got covered quite quickly. Another idea that came from that was the idea of the polls, and the polls were a way to engage people, but also just to get people to think a little bit. They seemed to work out quite well. I was interested to learn a lot about where people were in terms of their personal experience with change and the challenges that they're facing, and it was a simple way to do that. So that seemed to work out fairly well, and I was quite content with that. The technology itself takes a little bit of getting used to. I've done lots of Zoom calls like many of you have, but still trying to figure that out, but that's okay. So some of the takeaways is that for the future is really looking at finding ways to get people more engaged in the content in a slightly deeper way. And this is really where the Sense Academy platform is meant to come alive, is the idea that using things like tweets and Facebook posts and Instagram and blogs that can complement the webinar. As people get familiar with that content, they can visit that. I'm hoping that can work. The other thing is also really creating much more of a channel for feedback. I think that would be something that might work really well. Anyway, what else did you think? If you looked at the webinar, you've watched the video, or you attended, I'd love to get your feedback. That's really how we learn. That's how we innovate. I want to walk the talk, and I want you to walk the talk with me. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.